From 4 Premier League titles in a row,
they are the ultimate Premier League team,
to potentially going trophyless.
Well, it's the most challenging time in City's recent history.
From 6 Premier League titles in 7 years,
Listen, I'm so proud for my 6 Premier Leagues against that team in the previous teams.
to 6 scratches on his bald head,
I want to hurt myself, yeah.
Pep's Manchester City are a story on their own. They used to win games for fun. Now their website is down because they couldn't string together 3 W's. So why exactly is one of the most dominant teams in Premier League history falling apart?
I'm not good enough. I'm not doing well. That is the truth.
When a team that is this successful falls apart in what feels like overnight, there are multiple factors in play. The first and most obvious factor is easy. Even Pep has talked about it.
The problem is Rodri, of course. We are playing this season without the best player, the Ballon d'Or, and without the best player in England last season.
Yes, whenever any team loses a Ballon d'Or winner, they are at a disadvantage. Anybody that had doubts over Rodri winning the award is now seeing his value. It's probably the first time ever that a Ballon d'Or winner has actually gained credibility from not playing. Rodri has been the most important player at Manchester City. Now I say important because I do think when everyone's healthy, everyone is in their prime, Kevin De Bruyne is the best player on Manchester City. But Rodri's value and impact, it's irreplaceable. This was very evident by the fact that in the 3 matches he missed in the 2024 Premier League season, City lost all 3 of them. This is because Rodri's responsibilities go well beyond of your traditional number 6s. We're talking about a player who isn't just responsible for winning the ball back and disrupting attacks. He is also the first player to receive the ball from the back line to initiate the play. He dictates the tempo, creates chances from deep. In fact, as he has played more and more under Pep Guardiola, he's transitioned from being a pure number 6 to a hybrid between a 6 and an 8. That explains why a holding midfielder got 12 goals and 14 assists while creating 11 big chances. 8 goals and 9 assists in the Premier League alone from a player who on paper is supposed to be an extra layer of protection in front of the back line. His goal contributions also came at the most clutch moments. He scored a late winner against Sheffield, a late equalizer to get a draw against Chelsea, and then a banger against West Ham on the final day to help City lift yet another Premier League title. Here's the problem though. City don't have a replacement for him. And I'm not talking about replacement as in finding a player of the same quality. I'm talking about the fact that Manchester City don't even have a single profile of player that matches what Rodri was doing. Like, they literally don't have a holding midfielder. Gundogan, Kovacic, Nunez, Bernardo Silva, these guys are not center defensive mids. They are center mids that can do a little bit of defensive work. You can't ask these guys to do what Rodri was doing defensively. They don't have the same level of athleticism. They don't have the ability to anchor a midfield. Even when Pep has run a double pivot, there's just not enough athleticism there for them to compete against the best teams. We saw what happened when he ran a midfield 3 of Rico Lewis, Bernardo Silva, and Gundogan against Liverpool's behemoth of a midfield. Now this of course brings me to the second issue that City is facing. Recruiting. Since they've won so much, I think a lot of their poor recruiting has gone under the radar. Technically speaking, they did try and bring in someone with Rodri's profile as a backup in Calvin Phillips. But of course, it didn't work out. And to be honest with you, it's a transfer that I'm very confused about. Calvin Phillips, for a while, was a really good holding midfielder. I remember watching this guy at the Euros and in Bielsa's lead system, and he looked great. So I don't know if Calvin himself didn't take care of his body. I know publicly there was some discussion both from him and Pep about him not being match fit enough.
No, it's not ginger. He arrived with the overweight.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Why is he overweight?
I don't know.
Or did Pep not give this guy enough opportunities? I have no idea. But it seems weird to me that somebody that was good enough to start for his national team at a major international tournament suddenly fell off a cliff. Now, to be fair to Pep, even after leaving City, it's not like Calvin Phillips has gone on and done incredible things. Whatever the reason, it was a transfer where somehow all parties involved lost. He wasn't the only one. Nunez for £53 million was a panic buy that never worked out. They went for him as a last resort because the Paquetá deal fell through. At that same time, Kevin De Bruyne was also injured. But this guy, he's done absolutely nothing to justify the fee. Again, I don't know if it's a tactical thing. He's been played kind of everywhere. Nobody knows his best position. But for that kind of money, you're hoping that City brings in a player who is a guaranteed starter, or at least a very useful rotational option. He was a good player on Wolves, and at Sporting under Ruben Amorim, he was really good. But at City, it just never worked out. It was money that was flushed down the toilet. Then you have Jack Grealish. Now the reality with Grealish is that City don't win the treble without him. Sure, he might not have been as impactful as Kevin De Bruyne Rodri, or Erling Haaland, but there's a reason that he was the starting left winger for a team that won the treble. And don't get it wrong, City had a lot of great left wingers in the past. Leroy Sané was incredible. Raheem Sterling was putting up Ronaldo and Messi-esque numbers playing under Pep. But neither of those guys helped City win the Champions League, and Grealish did. And that's because Grealish did exactly what Pep wanted from him. He progressed the ball but kept control, he drew fouls, and he created chances. City fans won't forget his performance against Bayern in the Champions League. For some City fans, that trouble alone might have justified Jack Grealish's fee, or at least their return on investment. But when you look on a long enough time frame, that amount of money for someone of Jack Grealish's output just seems like a waste. Now again, Grealish under Pep has never been a player that's going to wow you with statistical output. But 100 mil for a guy who hasn't scored a single goal in 40 plus games is ridiculous. And it really comes to light when the team as a whole is struggling. That kind of money is supposed to be for superstars, but Grealish has offered practically nothing since the treble winning season. Again, it's one of those things that was swept under the rug because when the team is winning, well, who are we to criticize or ask questions about a big signing? But now that they're struggling, it really comes to the limelight. But here's the crazy part. If City had integrated the youth players from their academy in a better way, they could have avoided some of these poor recruiting decisions. Getting rid of Cole Palmer was obviously a huge mistake. I will say one thing about Palmer though. I don't know if he would look as good as he does right now in Pep's rigid system. I think he's flourishing a lot as a free roam number 10 under Maresca, but as a right wing in Pep's system, I don't know if he would play as good. But even if he was half as good as he is now, he would have been a super impactful player to this City side. People forget he was playing amazing in the beginning of the 2024 season before his transfer to Chelsea. I actually think Savinho is a very quality right winger that's just been a little bit unfortunate that he's come to City at a time where the entire team is struggling. But again, I think Palmer could have coexisted in this team. What would have stopped Pep from trying Palmer as one of the 8s or as one of the 10s, especially with KDB having so many injury issues? But you know who I think is an even bigger miss than Palmer? Lavia. Lavia could easily have been a starting holding midfielder in this City team right now. He joined City in the summer of 2020 from Anderlecht. He was quickly promoted to the under-23 squad and was even voted player of the season. But then, he was sold to Southampton. Are you telling me that a quality defensive midfielder like that couldn't have been slowly integrated into the City team? And Lavia is the exact type of player City is missing right now. A powerhouse in the midfield. Someone who is both good on the ball, but can also win duels. And now Chelsea have him. In fact, he's been so good that at times Maresca has used Lavia with Caicedo and dropped Enzo Fernandez. The exact same thing applies to Morgan Rogers. Rogers is another player that would have been perfect for City right now as one of the 8s. Another player that combines technical ability with power. But he was just never given a chance. Instead, he was passed around like a hot potato, loan to loan from club to club. And the funny part is that City knew Rogers would be good. That's why they put a sell-on clause on his contract in his initial move to Middlesbrough. They would not be struggling the way they are right now because they would have so much athleticism and power and quality in the center of the park instead of relying on an old Gundogan and Bernardo Silva to carry the team. Now imagine on top of those guys, they also have Frimpong, when he easily could be the starting right back right now instead of them relying on Lincoln Burrows from Prison Break. Now the funny part is that all of these issues were there last year too, but they were hidden because Foden had his best every year. Do not let the recent discourse around Foden rewrite history. He was by far and away the best player in the Premier League in 2024. He scored 19 goals and got 8 assists in the league, many of his goals being unbelievably clutch. It was his brace that won City the league on the final match day against West Ham. He scored a hat-trick against Villa, who were a real tough team last year. He scored a brace against United. Foden had to be amazing because KDB missed half the season to injury. KDB now dealing with injuries and age is a factor too, but I didn't put that much emphasis on it because De Bruyne has been injured before and that hasn't stopped City from winning games and winning titles. The problem is, this time around when KDB got injured, nobody stepped up. Foden was supposed to be the heir to the KDB throne. After last year, everyone thought we were seeing City become Foden's team.
I actually think we're now morphing from the Kevin De Bruyne team into the Phil Foden team.
But the Englishman has fallen off a cliff. And unfortunately, KDB looks done as well because in 2024, when he came back from his injury, he was still amazing. Just go and look at his performance against Newcastle coming off the bench. This guy was still one of, if not the best player in the league.
Thought the substitution of De Bruyne, obviously world-class player. He's scored one, he's assisted one, and he's made the difference really.
But it seems like he's hit a wall, and he's not the only player. I think the whole team has plateaued mentally, but I'm honestly surprised it took this long. Walker looks completely done. I mean, this guy every single week is making some sort of mistake. Gundogan looks done as well. I know City fans were probably excited that he came back, but this is so far away from the Gundogan that we saw in 2022. To be fair to him, I still think he's a great player. I think a lot is being asked from him just because, as I said earlier, there is nobody to cover the defensive duties in the midfield. Even in his prime, I don't think he was being asked to do as much as he's doing right now in terms of covering ground and winning duels. This is a guy that you push further up the pitch when you have a defensive anchor behind him and you let Gundogan do his thing. That's how City were getting the best out of him in that final season where he captained the side to a treble. What's crazy is that Pep knows that to keep a team motivated, you have to constantly adapt your style and bring in new players. It's just the recruitment has been so poor. But on top of that, many players are making individual errors. That's why I can't really put too much blame on Pep. What's he supposed to do when Nunez is giving up a random penalty to Ahmad? What's he supposed to do when Ederson is making this mistake against Feyenoord? Or when Guardiola is having his long list of defensive errors? You combine all of these factors and it's not a surprise that it's been such a mess of a season. Because momentum is huge in football and City has lost all of it. And as a result, they've also lost their fear factor. I think they won a lot of games in past years because teams were just so afraid of them. If you went down 1-0 to Pep's City team, you were cooked. But now every team that plays them has belief and faith that they can come back and win. I mean, Feyenoord came back from 3-0 down in the last 15 minutes of a Champions League game to get a draw. Pep has signed an extension, so I don't think he's going anywhere. But it's going to take some spending and new blood to rejuvenate this team. But on top of new players, they also need the existing players to recapture their form. To see what Haaland was doing and how incredible he was in his first 2 seasons, you have to check out this video right here.